Welcome to Brand You,
the ultimate personal branding podcast.
I'm Kaz Grant.
And I'm Toby Lee.
Together, we're here to help demystify personal branding
and to make it accessible and effective for everyone.
Follow along as we guide you through creating your own personal branding journeys.
So, let's get started.
Let's brand you.
Welcome back to another episode of Brand You, the ultimate personal branding podcast. Now, last time we were talking about why you should be personal branding in 2024 and beyond. And this week we're going to be talking about how do you get started? What do you need to do to get the ball rolling on your personal brand?
So whether you've started a personal brand already or whether you've yet to begin personally branding, it's really, really important that you get across before you start some certain things. Because if you don't have your messaging right before you start, if you don't know what you're going to be talking about, if you don't know how you want to be perceived and look to the world, then it's going to be really hard to start and curate a great personal brand. So today we're going to talk to you more about how to do that.
So Kaz, where should we start before we even start personal branding? What do we need to know?
So I think one of the most important things before you start personally branding is to start to understand yourself. Because you're going to be putting across a version of you to the world that you want to put across. If you don't know who you are at your core, what lights you up, what kind of quirks you have, what sort of things has happened to you in your past that have formed you into the person that you're going to be today, it's going to be really, really hard to think of the messaging that you want to put across to the world. So I'd say have a good think and write down these questions as well as you're going through it. But think about things like what makes you you. So what kind of things have you gone through in the past that has made you into who you are today? What training have you done? What qualifications do you have? What was your upbringing like? What sort of quirks do you have? What makes you different to everybody else? Like, are you a smiley person or are you quite the opposite? Are you not a smiley person? Are you an extrovert? Are you an introvert? So yeah, really just thinking about the journey of where you began to who you are today and everything that has kind of formed you during that.
Yeah, and I suppose within that, it's not necessarily like just the positive career progression sort of moves. It's also like any hardships, any challenges that you've been through, both personal and professionally, because they kind of inform why you do what you do. And I guess that's kind of what we're trying to get down to, isn't it? That the who are you is kind of going to tell us why it is that you do the role you do, work with the people that you do, why you're passionate about what you do, and suddenly we can start building all these other messaging parts into it. It's also another element that we can connect with each other on, you know, when you start being open about things that have been difficult and challenging for you in the past and you start sharing that, suddenly that's a real human level to connect with people on and respond to.
Yeah, absolutely, because life is life, isn't it? Like none of our lives, none of our human journeys have been absolutely perfect. Yeah. And we got to today and everything just went well and the world was so wonderful. Well, isn't that great if that's happened to you? Potentially brace yourself for impact because it's going to hit soon if it hasn't already. Because life happens to us all. Like you said, it connects us. Yeah. It's that building rapport with other people. If you've been through similar situations to they have, there's that instant like connection. And also like for someone like me, I'm quite a positive person. Yeah. So I don't necessarily like... Yeah, who'd have thought it?
You're always wearing a frown.
I know. This isn't like just put on my face so like I'm not really like this. This is me. I'm a positive person. I know there are lots of other people out there that are positive people. So sometimes I think we're scared of sharing some of the hardships and the negatives because it can come across like we're moaning or complaining or things like that. But I think there's a way of doing it that showcases that you went through some of the hard times and maybe not sharing it at the time of going through the hard times, but moving from that. Like, what were the lessons that you learned in that? How did you get through it? What were some of the tools that you used? What were some of the books you read, the people that you watched on TV that got you kind of through it? Like, what things got you through that? And that's then not a negative spin on it. That's a positive spin on it. And it's also something that adds value to people because it's inspiring them and it's helping them get out of that hole as well. So that's quite an important thing to do with challenges as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's using those experiences to be relatable and someone to connect to.
Yeah, definitely.
And I like that idea of putting a positive spin on it. That's cool.
Yeah. However, if you are a negative person naturally, maybe that's what you want to show, and maybe a part of your personal brand is a bit of a moan, and there will also be people that will connect to the moaning element as well. So again, if that is naturally how you are and who you are at your core, don't hide that and put a positive spin on it.
Yeah.
Put who you are on it. But again, you could still maybe learn some stuff through that will help your audience. I guess also when we're thinking about who we are at our core as well, like who are the people throughout our lives that have shaped us? So again, thinking about the books that we've read, the podcasts that we've listened to, the teachers that we had, the parents, how they brought us up, like who's inspired us throughout our lives, who's turned and had a big impact on our lives as well, and how's that formed and shaped us into who we are as well. Because again, when you're personally branding, it's nice to talk about others, because again, it's not just about me, you putting that out to the world. It's about, shining a light on other people who have helped as well, and other people's stories, because we won't be everything to everybody, but within our communities, within our surroundings, there's lots of different people that other people might resonate to their stories as well, that we can also share along the way. I mean, I'm sure loads of people have shaped your life along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's, whether it be photography influences or business related influences, or even because I'm into running and sports and gym and things like that, loads of influences like that. And I think when you mentioned the me, I guess what we're trying to build is lots of external messaging points, things that we can talk about that are directly related to us and our personal brand and who we are as a human. That we can be sharing, but actually once we start externalizing them, they become a little bit easier to communicate. They don't feel like they're necessarily us and that we're sharing loads of personal stuff that we feel we're spilling our lives onto people. And I think the great examples that you mentioned there of the challenging past experiences and people who have shaped us, you're exactly right. If we're talking about them, but the effect that they've had on us, we're still adding our value to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And again, like some of these people, maybe you want to keep it more private who they are. You might not necessarily, if it's been a specifically bad thing or trauma that's happened in your life, and you might not want to mention names or who they are in relation to you if you don't want them to be kind of known by people. But you can share it again in a way that it doesn't name and shame them, but that kind of gives the story and the gist of it. So again, keeping privacy and everything like that as well, you can easily do that whilst also sharing what's made you.
So I imagine that's going to be quite a sensitive thing for people to actually go and make that step to do. Why is it important to kind of share those little personal challenges and the positive moments, of course, the celebratory moments? Like why would we be sharing those?
Again, it connects us to other humans. Other humans will resonate through the stories that we've been through, but also it sets us apart as well. So there's a resonation between the people that will like us and get to know us and get to trust us, but then there's also that separation, like what makes you uniquely qualified to talk about that, do that, share value on that. Why are you so good at that now? Well, it's because of you've been through this past experience. You've learned all of that knowledge through, and it's shaped you as a human. You are now qualified to do that. It sent you down that path to learn this. So then you went into that area of expertise.
Sure.
So it's showing like why, in a way, you're qualified to do that thing as well, I think.
Nice. And I guess there aren't many other opportunities if you're just communicating as a business to do that. That's where the huge benefits of doing a personal brand can help.
Often, like at business club or when I'm speaking to other people through Quirk and we're talking about their personal brands, we are looking at their background and what shaped them and the stories that they share with us on those Zoom calls or at business club talking to other people, and we're getting to know them through networking and stuff. They're beautiful stories, aren't they? And I instantly feel like I know you more, I know your business more, I resonate more to what you're doing and what your mission on this earth is and your passion and your purpose. I want to get behind that because of everything that's formed you into that person. And I really, really like that. And I think that is the most important thing to get right before you start personally branding, unlocking some of this stuff from you.
Yeah.
Because again, I think when we think about personal branding and the content that we're going to be sharing, one of the blockages, like, I've got nothing to talk about, I've got no value to offer this world.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas actually we've all got value to share with this world. We might just not know that it is value or that we have had that experience. When we start writing some of this stuff down and we start getting clear on who we are and what we've been through, it's like, oh yeah, actually, I have got value to add.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who exactly has said it. I think I've heard it on many a podcast before, but something along the lines of, you are the most qualified to help the person that you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever that time frame is to you. And I truly believe that, like, the person that I was 5 years ago is very different to the person that I am now. Yeah. And I don't think the person 5 years ago would be sat here doing a podcast with you, Toby, because I wouldn't have believed that I had anything to share with the world or any value or any offer. And personal branding wasn't on my radar really back then. I was doing it, but I didn't know I was doing it. So it's like thinking back to what made us who we are gives us that, like, yes, we are qualified to do this. I mean, for yourself with photography, has any of that kind of resonated with you, with your journey?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think because my background was in acting and in the entertainment industry, and that's how I got into doing headshot photography, it's something I now try and share when I meet new potential clients, because even though I'm photographing people for personal branding or for business portraits, whatever it might be, the way I view how I'm capturing you and representing you goes straight back to casting photos and people going up for auditions. You know, how do we, you know, they want to look a certain way to try and get certain parts on TV or film or whatever it might be. And it's exactly the same with this. You know, you want to try and attract a certain audience within a certain industry or sector. How can we sort of capture that? So all those experiences are completely relatable. Something I'd sort of add to what you've said there about this whole brainstorming of these ideas is, don't ever think any experience isn't relevant, because sometimes it's the ones that seem most irrelevant that actually make more sense to how we see you as a person. As soon as we find out that little extra detail, that little bit of backstory, it's kind of like, oh, I feel like I get her now, or, you know, I understand. Yeah, exactly. And that can be really interesting in how that can really open up a relationship as well. An example I'll give is, you know, Fran, who works at Quirk with you. But, you know, I'm aware that she'd done like high rocks competitions and stuff like that, gym competitions that I'm really interested in. Yeah. And we probably spent more time talking about that than we did sort of business stuff on a recent call. But, you know, it's having those kind of connections that open the door to the conversations. But if we're not sharing those personal things, we're not giving the opportunity for people to come forward to us and start chatting that can lead to professional work. Yeah,
absolutely. I think we might need to get Fran on the podcast at some point in the future, because she's played a big part in my story of this as well. Yeah. And actually, again, just talking about Fran so she runs Future Cloud Accounting. Yeah. I actually went to her for accounting years ago.
Oh, really?
Before we start working on Quirk. Okay. Again, because I didn't want to go to stuffy accountants in suits in a proper office, the old boys club. I wanted to go to someone I resonated with, who wouldn't make me feel small and like stupid for any questions that I needed to ask. Yeah. And she was putting herself out there and she was showing up in her authentic self, and I resonated with that. So again, I wanted her as my accountant. So it's like those little things that you make connections with people that makes you go to them or choose somebody else.
Yeah.
So yes.
And with services like that, you want someone that, you know, you can kind of pick up the phone and who's going to be on the end of it in terms of helping you. And if you've already got such a good idea of who she might be from her content and her personal branding work, then it makes those decisions far easier.
So much easier, yeah. And when you said about the casting background for you, where like we spoke about this ages ago, when you were taking photos and stuff, and I instantly thought, I'm in good hands here.
Right.
Because you've got that background and because you've done that. So you're looking through that camera and through that lens with a very different thought process than I can even comprehend sat there on the other side of it. And I know, and I trust you more that you're going to get those shots because of that background that you've had and what you're trying to draw out of that. So
it's interesting.
It's really interesting, isn't it?
It's not just about
make it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For me, it's not just about getting a flattering picture, you know, that would probably be what most of my clients are after. But actually, if we're going to achieve that with a load more detail and purpose, it's actually going to serve them, you know, as a tool.
So I guess that brings us on to sort of point 2 in this section as well, of things that we want to kind of find out or learn before we start personally branding. And I think the second thing in that, the second most important thing to me would probably be the key messaging. And what I or you as a person setting up a personal brand would want to get out to the world. So I think, again, we've figured out who we are, we've delved in deep, we've got our background sorted, and we've brainstormed all of that. The next thing would be like key messaging. So think of things like, what industry are you in? What background do you have? What do you want to attract? Do you need to attract clients? Do you need to attract collaborations? Do you need to attract friends? Do you need to attract dates? The future husbands? Do you need to attract, what do you want to get out of your personal brand? Because that's going to shape some of the key messaging as well that you're going to be putting out there, is what you want to get back from this. So have a think about that as well. Anything you think on the key message? Well,
I was going to put the question on you. Could you give us a few examples from a Quirk point of view and who you're trying to attract and how you are personally using your personal brand messaging wise? How are you reaching people?
So first of all, it's getting clear on who your target audience is. So who do you want to reach out to? So again, another thing to brainstorm along with who you are, your key messaging is your target audience. Like, think about some of the people that you want to attract from your messaging. And then when you think about them and then you think about who you are, you can kind of blend the two together and come up with some of these message points. So for us at Quirk, there's a lot of, and this is part of what this podcast is doing, is demystifying personal branding. You say the word personal brand and people give you a glazed over kind of look like, that sounds great, Kaz. Like, I don't even know what that is what they're thinking in their head. Like, oh God, she's going to make me try and get online. I don't want to show my face and all of this stuff. So then our key messaging is kind of getting out what personal branding is, how people could do it, how people can get the confidence to do it, because that's another big barrier that people have. And almost our key messaging is taking up with the objections that our future clients would have and past clients have had, and people that we speak to along the way at networking and things. People will tell you why they won't work with you straight away. So actually your key messaging can include those objections, and you can start talking about that in your messaging. So people are less likely to then come at you with the objections or ask you, you know, I don't want to do that, or I could never do that, because they've seen then your messaging that you're putting out online behind the scenes of why they should be and how they can be. So that objection's almost gone when they start speaking to you then. So definitely looking at objections as part of your messaging.
I'd say that's definitely something that I focus on as a business, because obviously the biggest objection I have is people not wanting to go in front of the camera, but they know that they need to, for whatever reason it is, whether it be a headshot or other photography. I commonly try and share tips on, you know, how can you look good in front of camera? You know, what does the actual process look like when you come into the studio? So it just kind of gives people a bit of awareness of what to expect. For messaging advice, I imagine some people might feel a little bit apprehensive about not coming across salesy with their messaging in terms of how they approach certain things. What sort of tips would you have on that? Or I guess one, to kind of deal with the feeling of whether they're coming across salesy, but also two, what can they actually do with their messaging? And I suppose the bits we've talked about who you are and the influences, challenges and things like that. That's all good stuff to connect with people that isn't salesy, but when it comes to actually talking about what you do.
So I think the fears, and it's not just being salesy, is it? It's being salesy, it's looking like you're showing off. It's like there are a lot, it's showing your face on camera, it's how you speak on video. It's actually all stems from not believing that you're worthy enough. And actually, like, you're not good enough, and you're as soon as you put yourself out there, you're going to get some kind of resistance from the public and from the external sources. And as humans, like, we are designed at a human basic instinct level to fit in. We're designed to fit in. We're designed to want to be a part of the community. Otherwise, when we're in a tribe, we're kicked out. fend for ourselves, probably get eaten by saber-toothed tigers. I don't know what was around back then. Like, so this is a real like inner fear that everybody who puts themselves online, who starts sharing their messaging, who starts personally branding, is going to have to get over. Yeah. But the fear of sales, for example, is just a part of that whole thing. You're not scared of selling. You're scared of coming across and putting people off of you. Yeah. You're scared that you won't fit in. You're scared that someone will tell you no. You're scared of being kicked out of the tribe. So it's fear's a weird one, because it's one of those things that you just gotta do to get over. Yeah. You are never going to not be scared of coming across like a salesman, not coming across show offy. You're never going to be not scared to show your face on camera. Yeah. Like before we start this podcast, are we scared? Like, well, there was fear, wasn't there? Yeah, there was nerves, there was fear. Yeah. Like, we're humans. We're putting something out to the world with our faces on it. Yeah. Like, that's like, oh my God, how are people perceive it? How is this? Yeah. Are people going to be thinking that we're selling to them? Yeah. Actually, we want to add a lot of value and all of that kind of stuff. So we've had all these fears too. To get over them, you just got to do it. And you just got to start putting yourself out there. And yes, if every single post you do on LinkedIn, for example, on your personal brand is, buy my product, buy my services, this is what I offer, buy my product, buy my services, buy my product, buy my services, you are selling. Yeah. But what's funny is half of the people that come to us with work that I kind of see and I have a little look on their feeds, they're scared of that, but they're also doing that. Yes. And they're not actually blending in any storytelling to it. So they're already doing that too much anyway. Yeah. So in a way, be less scared of that and actually get clear on all of these other things and all of this other messaging. And then you can weave your sales messaging in with it. When we'll talk about content and creating posts later, when you're creating posts and you're putting calls to action on. So you want people to read this post and take an action at the end of it. So, most people think, click link in bio, buy my thing, 20% off, whatever. But calls to action can also be conversational. They can open up conversations to people. What do you guys think? Yeah. Subject. What do you guys think? And then it can start a conversation with your audience, which will drive your engagement, which will make them feel a part of you and a part of all of your ecosystem as well, which is great. But then also you'll start to have conversations with your ideal clients, and you might unlock some of the objections and stuff along the way. Again, at no point are you then replying back with, well, here's my solution, buy my thing. You're just having a conversation with them. And actually, while we're on this subject, don't be offended when something comes across in a text format as a comment on your post as like a vicious attack to you. Most of the time, it's not a vicious attack to you. You've asked for their opinion. Yes. They've given it. Yeah. Take a step back from your computer before replying to anything that does trigger you. Sure. And then reply back and be like, interesting. I have never thought of it like that. What makes you think this? And again, open up the conversation even more. Yeah. If it is blatant, like harassment, bullying, racism, horrendous comment back to a call to action or anything that you post on social media, I think what most people are missing, and one thing that helps me get over the fear side of putting myself out there on social media, is that I have the power of a block button. And I will use that block button. Yes. Yeah. I don't need to have every single follower in the world or every single connection in the world. If somebody is going to be mean, horrible, say something nasty to me, I'm going to block them. Yeah. And then that's it. And if it is really bad and it's against the rules of the social media platform, I can block and report them as well. And I will do that if it is something really, really bad. I haven't had to use it. Yeah. But everybody has the power of that. So again, like, put yourself out there feeling empowered that you have that block button available and you can use it anytime you want to.
Love that.
Yeah. So I guess when thinking about target audience as well for people, they can think about things like, first of all, where do they hang out? Because if you're looking at what social media platforms to go on and to start your personal brand on, you need to know where your target audience is. There's no point in you being on TikTok doing dances if your ideal audience is on LinkedIn. Yeah. Again, maybe in the future, TikTok's a new thing, so maybe the audience will be later down the line. YouTube's got a lot of younger people on at the moment watching, so your future target audience might grow into it and stuff. So there's different things that may be beneficial further down the line. Yeah. But I think when you're first starting to personal brand, like, make it easy for yourself. Yeah. like just go on one or two platforms. Don't go on all of them, and we'll probably dive into this at other episodes. But so think about where your target audience are. Think about the age bracket that they are. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? Because again, if you're going to be making funny reels or content, like for yourself and probably for me, we have like the gym thing in common, don't we? We love working out, we love exercise. You make something gymmy, we're going to be instantly hooked into that. So if we're your ideal client, like do something funny on that. So you need to know what their interests are. You need to think about kind of what sex they are. So are they men or are they women? Because again, there's different men and women on every single platform.
Sure.
So you can kind of go onto Google and find a lot of this information out anyway about your target audience. You can go on there and you can find things out like what demographics are on certain media, like social media channels and stuff. So you then know where to position yourself. You can find out where they will hang out and stuff. I mean, Google is just amazing nowadays, isn't it? Really.
Absolutely.
Or using a tool like AI to write some of this stuff into ChatGPT. So I am a personal brand that wants to get across this key messaging. This is my background and how I was formed and how I got into this and how passionate I am about this. And this is my product service offering. This is what I want to achieve. Who are my target audience? Oh, my target audience. Who are my target audience? Where do they hang out? You know, what age they are and stuff like that. And actually, something like a tool like ChatGPT will come back with so much information on your target audience. You could even ask ChatGPT, like, what questions do I need to ask to find my target audience? Like, go and use some of these AI tools, not to do all of your personal brand for you, but to learn more information like this. So learn more about your target audience. Definitely go on to ChatGPT or use an AI tool, because that's like invaluable nowadays.
Yeah, great. So we've talked about the starting point to setting up your personal brand then. So we've talked about who you are, what's influenced you, your messaging, and target audience. I guess the sort of last part is probably sometimes considered the most exciting part. It's kind of, how do you want your personal brand to look? You know, the aesthetic side, all the way through from, you know, choosing which specific colors you want to be associated with for your brand. And I guess there's tools out there, aren't there, to go and look at what different colors mean and what resonates with you. So, for example, the yellow of the Brand You podcast, you know, had connotations of confidence and empowerment and so on, which is exactly kind of what we wanted to say. All the way through to your sort of visual representation, you know, in any photos and videos that you're going to be sharing or trying to capture, you know, how do you want to look, you know, and that ties in with the messaging as well, doesn't it? What you want to say about your brand overall.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes people maybe start on the aesthetics because they're like, oh yeah, what colors do I want? What things? And that's okay. It's the fun part. Yeah, right. So that's okay to do. But it's kind of like, once you've got all of the others in place, have a little think about that. And again, get all of this in kind of like a document, a personal brand document of you. So it's all there, easy to see. And then once you've got all of this information, you know, you can go on Canva and create something. And it's going to look like your creation. You can have a brand photo shoot and you know what colour to go and wear. And you know what brief to give the photographer, because that must be nice when someone comes to you and they understand more about themselves. Like, you've got a brief there and you can be like, I can work with this. This person knows them. I don't have to draw this information out of them. That must be really nice.
Yeah, when they know what they want to say and who they want to say it to. Yeah, it makes it a lot easier. We can be more specific.
So get these things in place first of all. And then you can create your personal brand from that, can't you? And I think to end, I'd like to just say as well, like, don't worry if you've already started personal branding and you've got all of your stuff out there and you're like, I'm too late. I've already started. I'm already doing some of the things wrong. I already haven't thought about that. I need to think about this. Like, you can still do it at any level, at any stage of your personal brand. And actually, you might want to do it throughout your personal brand as well, because as humans, again, we don't just stay static and don't grow and change. We'll grow and change throughout this whole time and journey. So maybe every 6 months, you want to sit down and brainstorm again. Right, who am I now? Who is my target audience now? What do I want to say now? How do I want to be perceived? What do I want to look like? What platforms do I need to be on and stuff like that? So
absolutely, because as your business grows and progresses, you're going to hit certain pivot points. And if you don't have those check-ins like you would with your business goals, you won't realize what's actually changed in a personal brand level that you need to acknowledge and be okay to make those changes as well, isn't it? Don't hold on to certain things if they're no longer, serving.
Maybe you weren't even a business when you started your personal brand, but you got online and opportunities came along, you were employed, and then suddenly you had a light bulb moment and an idea, and you then created your own business.
Yes.
So, all these things change throughout our lives that might then spiral us off into a different direction. So we need to just sort of pivot our personal brands a bit throughout our journey. So yeah, so cool. So we said in the intro to this podcast that there's going to be actionable steps along the way, and we want to try and give you an actionable tip at the end of each podcast episode that you can put into place right now to start building and start creating the flourishing personal brand that you want to grow. So the action step today would be to re-listen to this episode and start brainstorming and put down the what makes you out of this episode. So go through the questions that we've gone through, spend time, and don't put this off, guys, because you'll never do it. Spend time getting to know who you are, the messaging that you want to get across, and then also who is your target audience. And then have a think about the lovely things like the branding and how you want to come across imagery-wise, and also the colours and the aesthetics to it as well. Get that clear, get it down on paper so that you can then start moving forward and creating your personal brand.
And I'd just reiterate on that as well. Even if that's something that you have done in the last 6 to 12 months, it's a great time now to go back through these questions and just see what aligns new this time round, because it might be different. You never know what you might discover.
So keep following along to the Brand You podcast, guys. The next episode will be all about getting you online. So what to do when you start personally branding to get you onto the online world.
These episodes will be dropping every Monday, so keep an eye out for those. And follow us on the LinkedIn Brand You community group, where you can ask any questions you might have about personal branding, and Kaz and I will be happy to help.
As always, guys, here's to branding you.